And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today. We'll take a look at some clips from the news, share a little bit of dialogue with those of you who are able to join us for the live portion. And if you happen to be watching anywhere else and you would like to join us for the live portion, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, on Coffee Talk, and Prepper University. Although we are early today, circumstances are such that I have to do it early today, so I am actually on at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And today is Wednesday the 1st, January the 1st, 2025. A new year already. As we get ready to jump off again, that's Prepper University and Coffee Talk on YouTube. Coffee Talk 2 on Rumble, which someone has told me that they went and looked for me. Thank you. To verify, there it is, Coffee Talk 2 on Rumble, to verify that, yes, it is there, but they did not see it while I was live, so they can't tell me if comments are working from Rumble or not. I have no idea. I can only see the comments from Prepper University and from Coffee Talk on Restream. I don't know if I can see it from Rumble or not. So we'll have to have some additional discovery with that as we get ready to chime off. Being joined today by Miss Granny Smith. There's Granny Smith on the floor there, keeping me company. And as always, I do read through as many of the comments as is reasonable. So I'll say hello to some of the people that chose to chime in so far. I see that Helter is here today, as well as Dragon. Jimmy is here. Raccoon. Bob. Cyberjack Sr. have all joined us here so far today. Glad you could make it as we get ready to jump off here and see what is going on in the world. Take a look at what I refer to as the realm of the ridiculous. That is the world that we are stuck living in here today. Stuck here. We're on this ball of mud in the middle of nowhere in the boondocks of the universe, as Carl Sagan used to put it. And it's not like we can just move. You are trapped. You are trapped on this mud ball, spinning out of control in the universe. And we'll start off with the elephant in the room. You probably heard about this. This happened at 3 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time. Was it 3 o'clock in the morning? I'll find out here in a moment. This is an independent article, and this was the attack in New Orleans. Nolans, if you live down there. The Independent, again, New Year's revelers celebrate in Times Square before New Orleans mass killing mars the holiday. So thrilled revelers embraced one another as the Big Apple entered 2025 to the tune of Frank Sinatra's New York, New York, with a blizzard of confetti falling from surrounding skyscrapers. Hours later, the day turned into tragedy when a mass killing happened in New Orleans, or Nolans. Guess it depends on where you're from. Tragedy struck at around 3 a.m., so I was right, in New Orleans, where a car slammed into a crowd on Bourbon Street, killing 10 and injuring 30 more. The suspect acted with very intentional behavior, quote, and even fired a gun at officers after he crashed his vehicle. He was hell-bent, this is a quote from the governor, he was hell-bent on creating the carnage and damage that he did. The FBI has taken over the case and confirmed that an improvised explosive device was found at the scene. Governor Jeff Landry describes it as a horrific act of violence and urged all near the scene to avoid the area. Miles away in New York, close to 1 million happy people packed Times Square Tuesday night to watch the ball drop. I don't know why they're talking about what's going on in New York. That's irrelevant. I don't care about Carrie Underwood doing a live performance in New York. We're talking about New Orleans here, and I don't know why they keep sidetracking back to New York like that. This is a lot more interesting. Now they're going on to talk about the ball drop, which is a 114-year tradition. I guess they don't know enough about what happened with New Orleans. Yeah, all the rest of this is about the ball drop in New York. That's not even the important story here. Independent. What the hell? A guy crashed into the crowd on Bourbon Street on purpose. He was armed. He had a bomb. Did they catch the guy? Was he killed on sight? What nationality is he? And I had a hard time even finding a story on this. I had a hard time. John says, pretty sporty out. Good grief, we need the Thundercats. Yeah, it's cold out today. And Johnny says, hey, you're early. Glad you are. Well, I have things to do today, and I had to get on early. But yeah, they don't explain anything about what happened with this other than he slammed into the crowd, killing 10 and injuring 30 more. Very intentional behavior. Fired a weapon at officers. Had improvised explosives. Did they catch him? Let me see if I can find more information on it. He injured 30 people. Injured 30 people and killed 10 others with his car. And let me look here real quick and see if I can find another story on the subject, because it doesn't really tell you anything. And again, I'm having a hard time finding anything on this, and I think this is actually pretty important. And this is a USA Today article. It says basically the same thing. There's nothing. I guess they don't have any information yet. The USA Today article says essentially the same thing. 10 people killed, 30 injured. Vehicle drives through a crowd on Bourbon Street in New Orleans at 3 a.m. They're not telling us anything. They're not telling us anything. I guess they don't have enough information to spread around just yet. So we'll have to wait and see. And Lucky says, what is this about? That's what I'm trying to find out. In New Orleans at 3 o'clock this morning, after the New Year's Eve celebrations, because it's New Orleans and it's loaded with people. Even after even after the New Year's have passed, they're going to be up all night partying. That this guy plowed through a crowd in his car, killed a bunch of people, injured a bunch of others, and got out of his car and ended up in a shootout with police, and that they found explosives in his car and everything else. But they're not telling you much else. John says he's hearing that the guy is dead with the shootout with police. That would make sense. That would make sense. And Ninja Bert said Sky News in the UK says he's dead after the firefight. All right. Yeah, and I'm not even finding stories on this. And I'm like, why isn't this being covered? Well, I guess hopefully there'll be some more information coming out later. Donna says, hope everyone has a great 2025. Remember, thumbs up, like, and share. Yes, please do if you don't mind. And Eric Peter says, nice to see you. I feel I spend more time watching you than with my wife. Oh, no. Oh, no. Well, I get around, I guess. And like I said, I'm doing it early today. And I should be casting also to Restream. I'm on Restream. I should be casting to Rumble. So it should be live on Rumble right now. But if it's working properly, which it was yesterday, I got feedback from somebody that, yeah, it's over here on Rumble. We can see it, but they didn't see it while it was live. So I don't know if I can see live chat from Rumble or not. I have no idea. But we may as well move on to the story that is related to the thumbnail. Because big surprise, Biden and Harris never really liked each other. never really got along like peaches and cream, like the media would have us believe. And Raccoon says, I see you on Rumble. Can you comment from Rumble, though? If your comment on Rumble, will I see it here, is what I'm wondering, because then I would have the capacity to interact with people on Rumble. Which apparently, by the way, last year I earned 29 cents. 29 cents on Rumble, yes, because Rumble works so well. 29 cents. Thank you. Fox News article, Biden-Harris's relationship meetings since the election have been frosty, according to reports. But it's always been that way. President Biden and Jill Biden's relationship with Vice President Kamala Harris and Doug Emhoff has been rocky after the vice president lost the election to President-elect Donald Trump, according to new reports. The Wall Street Journal reported Monday that the post-election rapport between the Bidens and the Harris family has sometimes been frosty in private, citing people familiar with their relationships. Harris took the president's place at the top of the Democratic ticket after a weeks-long pressure campaign forced Biden to drop out of the race in July. They put her up there. They put her on a pedestal. She didn't go through the right channels. The president was lauded as a hero and a patriot for dropping out. Oh, please. But he's taken blame in recent weeks for not getting out sooner in the wake of President-elect Trump's victory. I don't think Biden would have lost. I don't think Biden would have won if he had stayed in. And I don't think that Harris would have won if she had gotten in earlier. I don't believe it. The WSJ noted that the First Lady Jill Biden has not been fond of Harris since she accused the president of opposing federally mandated business policies during a Democratic debate in the 2020 election cycle, citing two people close to the First Lady and Harris. So they never got along anyways. White House spokesperson Andrew Bates and a spokesperson for the vice president, Kirsten Allen, denied that there were any ripples between the pair, according to the outlet. Of course they're going to deny it. During the last few weeks of the campaign, Harris's team was frustrated with the president's appearance in public. Biden made a surprise appearance in the White House briefing room in early October and then made headlines at the end of October when he said Trump supporters were garbage, although the White House denied that was his intention. He still said it, and he said it on live television. Not only that, but he has the nerve during, and we read this the other day, when he made an address from St. Croix, because he's on vacation right now, made an address from St. Croix talking about Jimmy Carter's death, took jabs at Trump for Trump talking about other people. But then he's going to get on national television, international television, really, on a live broadcast and read a speech, prepared speech, because, you know, he doesn't actually talk. I mean, when he does talk off the top of his head, he trails off everywhere and very angrily and aggressively refer to anybody who supports Donald Trump as being just garbage. So it's okay if they did it. Raccoon says, I typed Happy New Year, and someone else just posted in Rumble chat too. I'm not seeing it here then. I'm not seeing it on the chat readout on Restream. So if you're watching on Rumble, I can't see your comments right now, unfortunately. But at least it's podcasting to the Rumble. It's at least we got that much going. So, I mean, in typical hypocritical political fashion, insults people, but then talks about when other people do it. And it doesn't surprise me at all that they never really liked each other or ever really got along, because she was just a diversity hire in the first place. She couldn't even place. She had like 1, maybe 2% of the vote during the 2020 election, which is why they asked her to get out of it. They made her the vice president. She goes from claiming to be Indo-American to African-American. They put her in as vice president. She was a diversity hire. Oh, look, we got this black woman, and she'll be the first black female vice president. It's history. We're making history. And she's a failure as a politician, just like Biden was. Remember, Biden was 50 years in politics. Harris was 34 years in politics. 35 now, because she's been in politics since 1990. 35 years she's coming on in politics. Really hasn't accomplished anything. Really hasn't accomplished anything. So she was just thrown in there so that they could get those diversity votes. Oh, look, we have a black woman vice president. Hasn't really done anything except embarrass us, going to France and speaking in a French accent. It's humiliating. It says Harris repeatedly defended the president against attacks on his age, fitness, and ability to serve, even after the president dropped out. That's just her talking point. That's what she's been told to do. Her, like everyone else, like Jean-Pierre from the press corps, is actually doing her job, because her job is to cover for the president. Can't be mad at her. That's what she was hired to do. Put that spin on and cover. I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get it. I get it. So she's not going to sit there and just openly trash him, at least not to the media. But that doesn't mean they like each other or get along. Despite the pretending, despite the spin, despite what the media would have us all believe, they're not besties. They don't like each other. Biden looks more and more like a Jeff Dunham puppet all the time. I tell you. He really does. He really does. Jeff Dunham had a Christmas special. He had a Christmas special this year, didn't he? I heard it was pretty bad, actually. Heard it was pretty bad. So there we go. There we go. They don't get along in real life. Is anyone shocked or surprised? They are not friends. They don't like each other. There is a lot of animosity. Too bad. Too bad. Doesn't surprise me at all. Now, more on the New York subway incident here. And I don't know why they won't acknowledge this yet. NBC News article, woman who was fatally set on fire in the New York City subway has been identified by police as a 57-year-old woman from New Jersey. So they know who she is now, finally. But they still won't tell you anything. The woman who was fatally set on fire in a New York City subway earlier this month has been identified as 57-year-old Deborah Kawam from Toms River, New Jersey. Kawam was asleep on an idle F train in the Stillwell Avenue station on December 22nd in Brooklyn, just before 7:30 a.m. when a man set her on fire and fled. He was standing there. I've seen the footage. He didn't flee very far. Police did not share any additional information about the victim. The initial release from the police said she was 61, but the age was corrected in a later release. New York City Mayor Eric Adams said Kawam had a brief stint in the city's homeless shelter system. Quote, "Our hearts go out to the family," Adams said during a news conference Tuesday. Don't you hate it when politicians say that? Oh, our hearts go out to your family. Oh, you're in our prayers. Shut up. You don't care. A horrific incident to have to live through, and just watching that tape, I couldn't even watch it all the way through. It was just a bad incident, and it impacts on how New Yorkers feel. Excuse me. Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez told reporters last week that his heart goes out to the victim and her family. They always say that. That's just one of those things that people say. Oh, you're in our prayers. Oh, our hearts go out to you. And I've made the reference to Tor. It's like before. It's like when you meet someone and they say, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" They don't really care how you're doing, and they don't want to know. And if you told them, they don't want to hear it. Quote, just because someone appears to have been living in the situation of homelessness does not mean that there's not going to be a family devastated by the tragic way she lost her life, Gonzalez said. Appears to have been living in the situation of homelessness. That's very, very cleverly worded. I bet he read that off a card. She's homeless or she's not. It's like they don't want to admit that she was homeless. Oh, she appears to have had a brief stint in the homeless shelter system. She's in the shelter system or she isn't. She's homeless or she's not. If she wasn't homeless, she probably wouldn't be asleep on an idle train at 7 a.m. Okay? Just say it. She was homeless. Doesn't mean they're not going to be family devastated. Is her family going to know? Does she have family? Is it like it makes me think of RoboCop 2. RoboCop 2 with the CEO is like, of course there'll be families. There always are. Because of the collateral damage that took place. Eric says couldn't watch it. Wasn't he a police chief? Yeah, I know. You know, that's another thing that they always say. If you watch enough of these, because remember, my wife likes to watch a lot of these true crime things where they interview actual police detectives and they talk to actual families. And every detective, every time says, oh, this is the worst murder I've ever seen in my career. Really? Everyone that's ever shown, you've been a detective for 20 or 30 years or whatever, and every time, every murder is showcased on any show, it's the worst one you've ever seen in your career. I think that's just something that they say. I think that's just something they say. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. But I find it hard to believe. Yeah, I'm sure he's seen other things that are really freaking gruesome that could compare with that. It says Sebastian Zapita Khalil, a Guatemalan citizen, was arrested in connection with Kawam's murder. Oh, you're not going to call him an undocumented citizen? Now he's Guatemalan. Okay. He's not, because, you know, New York has been calling them undocumented or unregistered citizens. Now you want to put him on Guatemala. A Guatemalan citizen was arrested in connection with Kawam's murder the same day of the incident after he was caught on a police body camera footage. Subway riders called 911 when they spotted him hours later, and officers took him into custody. And there he is right there looking really pissed off. He needs a hairbrush. Says he was indicted on 4 counts of murder and 1 count of arson. Per prosecutors, a grand jury indictment was announced in court, and 1 count of first-degree murder, 3 counts of second-degree, and 1 count of first-degree arson, according to the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. Still no explanation whatsoever as to what his possible motive was. First-degree charge carries the possibility of life without parole, which is why I'm for the death penalty, and I've said it a million times, and I'll say it again. The entire premise behind the death penalty is not as a deterrent to heinous crimes. It's to keep a public menace from also becoming a public burden. This guy, Zapita Khalil, he's 33 years old. If he gets life in prison and they put him in Rikers or wherever, then for how long? The next 30, 40, 50 years maybe? Taxpayers are going to be funding his existence. he becomes a burden on the system, which is where you get the term prison industrial complex from in the first place. Incredible. It goes on to remind us the Guatemalan citizen is in the U.S., referring to Khalil, unlawfully and had been previously deported, according to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials. It's already been thrown out. I thought I had heard that he was thrown out twice. I could be wrong about that. Monkey says, also, I feel they say that if they're going to be on the documentary, they'll say that despite the case not being that big. That could be. But they all say that. And I'm like, nah, come on, buddy. Maybe a couple of people, it might be the most nasty bit of murder they ever came across personally. But not all of them. Not everybody, especially if it's like a major city where they might be exposed to more incidences of murder. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. But anyways, and again, it's just like one of those things that they say. You saw there also that Eric Adams and the district attorney there both made the same euphemism. Oh, our hearts go out to the family. Thanks. Thanks for that. Do you know who the family is? You better find out before they start looking for a paycheck, because that family, they probably haven't seen that woman in 20 years, but they'll sure show up if they think they can get a settlement. And they'll cry and they'll weep. There'll be much gnashing of teeth, groaning and gnashing of teeth. And they'll put on a big show, a big act, if they think they can get a big settlement. Raccoon says it cost taxpayers $90,000 a year to house Manson, and he lived out his life into the 80s. Correct. And that's the purpose. That's the main function behind the concept of execution. You're supposed to, and that's biblical, remove that person from society, because they will continue to be a burden on society. And they will continue to generate or perpetrate a generational curse on people, even by their existence. You eliminate that. You cut that cancer out of your society. Monkey says, I can see that being the case if the detective had been on the force for 5 years or so, but 30 years, though? Come on. Yeah. And some of these people are seasoned detectives. It wasn't like their first year out rookie detective. So it frustrates me when they say stuff like that. It also frustrates me when they do this. Adams, again, our hearts go out to the family. And then the district attorney, Eric Gonzalez, says the same thing, almost verbatim. Our hearts go out to the family. Yeah, goes out to the victim and her family is how he phrased it. But he said basically the same thing. And that's just one of those things that people say so they can sound like they care. I know I'm very cynical. I am very, very cynical because I study people, and I know that most people are dishonest. Most people are frauds. Most people don't care. Most people are nasty and cruel and selfish. And that's just the reality of it. You have to not want to be. It's inherently in us, and you have to not want to be. More and more, I identify with Agent Smith from The Matrix. He's like, I have to get out of here, this zoo. It's the smell. Hugo Weaving as Agent Smith. Excellent performance from Hugo Weaving. He generally does a pretty good job with his acting. Refused to do the new Matrix because they had the Matrix 4. They tried to rekindle that franchise. I did not see it. I wasn't interested in seeing it because I figured they would ruin it like they do with every other cultural phenomenon franchise in the modern era. We're seeing all our beloved franchises being destroyed. Even the new ones like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter are being ruined. And they ruined the Matrix as well with that tripe that they put out, as I understand it. A lot of people were very upset with that. But Hugo Weaving, they contacted him and asked him if he would be Agent Smith again. And he looked at the script and didn't like it. And he was like, well, I'm willing to work with you. Maybe we can do some rewrite, right? Maybe we can talk about it. They dismissed him, told him not to come back. So good for you, Hugo Weaving, for not taking that check, having a little bit of integrity with your acting, turning down a shitty script, unlike Harrison Ford, who, if the check is big enough, will do damn near anything, I guess, because he's already been responsible for had his hand in the destruction of 2 major franchises. 3, actually. His 3 biggest franchise connections, which is obviously Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Blade Runner, because he was in the Blade Runner sequel, which a lot of Blade Runner, the sequel, looked pretty good, but the story wasn't very good at all. I know I went completely in left field here, and I'm supposed to be reading news articles. Hope you don't mind. Hope you don't mind. As we jump into a Telegraph article, and there's Brian joining us today. Yes, I'm on early today because I have way too much to do today. I can't do it at the regular time. Telegraph article. Chinese hackers steal U.S. Treasury documents in a major breach. It just doesn't stop. Chinese state-sponsored hackers who accessed U.S. Treasury workstations have stolen government documents. The Treasury Department declared a major cybersecurity incident after the latest attack in a worldwide cyber espionage campaign, disclosing the breach in a letter to lawmakers. Hackers were able to obtain a security key by infiltrating a third-party cybersecurity provider, Beyond Trust. Beyond Trust is the name of the company, which in turn provided access to a cloud-based service that the Treasury uses for technical support. The Treasury said it was informed by Beyond Trust on December 8th that hackers had breached several remote government workstations and gained access to unclassified documents on them. The revelation comes as U.S. officials continue to grapple with the fallout of a massive Chinese cyber espionage campaign known as Salt Typhoon, which gave officials in Beijing access to private texts and phone conversations of an unknown number of Americans. And we read that a couple of months ago. Hackers acquired access to unencrypted communications in the system that logged U.S. law enforcement requests for criminal wiretaps, revealing to Beijing who was of interest to authorities, potentially including their own spies. Hi, Miss Kitty. Miss Kitty is here. Come on, darling. There you are, baby. Good girl. I'm Miss Kitty's only friend. In October, the Biden administration said it was investigating unauthorized access to commercial telecommunications infrastructure by actors affiliated with the People's Republic of China. The number of telecommunications companies confirmed to have been affected by the hack has risen to 9 now, according to the White House. Hackers reportedly targeted the phones of Trump and his running mate Vance during the presidential campaign. This is an ongoing effort by China to infiltrate telecom systems around the world to exfiltrate huge amounts of data, according to Senator Mark Warner. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You leaving already? Go ahead, you can make the jump. Miss Kitty is up on the table. You can't see her. She looks like she's ready to leave already. She doesn't like it when I sit here and talk. That's okay. The Treasury did not provide details on how many workstations had been accessed in the latest Chinese hack, but the department sought to reassure lawmakers that, at this time, there is no evidence indicating the hacker has continued access to Treasury information. Yeah, I trust that. I trust that. The compromised service has been taken offline. The nature of the files and the seniority of the staff whose materials were accessed remain unclear. The department said it was working with the FBI and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency and others to investigate the effects of the hack, adding that the culprits had been identified as Chinese state-sponsored actors. Beijing has dismissed the accusations as groundless. and as a means to slander China. Why? You think they're going to admit it? Oh, yeah, sure. We hacked you. Totally. We totally hacked you. No, they're not going to admit that. Nobody admits anything. Come on now. Give me a break. Of course, they're not going to tell you they did it. You can catch them and they're not going to tell you they did it. You can catch them in the act and they won't admit it. Why would they? Why would they? It doesn't matter how much evidence you have. You know, this sort of thing never used to happen when we didn't use computers for everything. It also doesn't help that almost everything is on a single system. It's foolish to keep all of your eggs in one basket. And I don't know why we keep doing that. I don't know why government keeps doing that, having everything on a single system. About the only thing that it does right is with the nuclear arsenal, because our nuclear arsenal is still using technology from the 60s. It's never really been updated. And the reason it's never been updated is because it can't be accessed. You can't just type on the computer and get to one of the silos. It doesn't work. They're still using those like 10-inch floppies, the old hard disk that was really big that they had back in the days when NASA was on top of the world. And there's a reason for that. And I've seen the media pick on them for that. Like, oh, well, why aren't these arsenals updated? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It can't be hacked. You can't get in there. But all these other systems that are all connected together through some third-party service and everything's up in the cloud, they get hacked all the time. They get hacked all the time. And I've brought this up before, talking about my mother-in-law, because we got that alert. It never made the news at all. I think it should have. It should have, but I mentioned it. We had the email, and I actually read the email on one of the podcasts that I did some months ago, that their service crashed, for their pharmaceutical data service crashed, because most of the pharmacy, or not pharmacies, but most of the hospitals and nursing homes in the country are on a single data service for distribution of medication. They don't write it down in a logbook by hand. It's data entered. And they rely on that data entry to even keep track of who's supposed to get what. And it went down, and it affected nursing homes and hospitals coast to coast. And they sent us an email saying, okay, it crashed, but it's back up and running. Nothing happened that affected our patient where you're concerned, talking about our my mother-in-law. So, but I'm like, why do you not have a written log? When I was working in mental health, I had to keep a handwritten log. When I had to distribute medication to clients when I worked for juvenile justice, I had to keep a written log, a handwritten log. There was no computer data system with a touch screen and bullshit keeping track of everything for me. You had to enter all that data by hand with a pen and paper. And Peter says, why are a lot of these systems even connected to the internet? Exactly. You keep all your eggs in one basket and they'll all break at the same time. And that was my argument then about whatever caused the crash with the medication distribution network. Why are there like 10,000 nursing homes on a single network? Why don't they have like a backup record? Okay, you want to data entry everything, that's fine. You should also still have a hard copy. You should have a book. Why is this not being done? It's to the point where you don't even know what to distribute without the system telling you what to do. Doesn't make any sense to me. But there we are again. Now the U.S. Treasury has just confessed that they've been hacked, but they won't tell us what information was hacked into. They haven't told us that yet, or who was directly affected, what officials were directly affected. And it's China again, surprise. And Mr. Kezerdrix said, heard about New Orleans. Yes, we opened with that. Somebody crashed in, again, for those of you who are just coming in. Someone crashed into a crowd on Bourbon Street in New Orleans at about 3 o'clock in the morning, killing 10 and injuring 30, and was armed, had a shootout with police. Apparently, he was killed on scene by officers in the shootout, and they found improvised explosives as well inside of his vehicle. And it's as far as I know, it has not been disclosed yet who this person was or what the motive was. Was it a terrorist attack? Was it just some nut? What was the motive? Not sure who this person is yet or what they were trying to accomplish. But I'm sure hopefully that will be revealed in the next couple of days, and then we can hash that over again as we move around here. And this is interesting, and this ties in with all of that technology, all the problems with the technology. And again, if you are watching on Rumble, because this is casting to Rumble now, I cannot see your comments. I can only see the comments coming in from YouTube. I'm not able to see the comments from Rumble. I'm not sure why that is. Some kind of restream continuity problem, I imagine. But this is interesting because this ties in with the whole problem of modern technology. Just like what we just described there. You put all your eggs in one basket with these companies and these data systems, and they're a lot more vulnerable than people realize. They're considerably more vulnerable than anybody realizes. And when everything was a paper trail, you couldn't do this. It was extremely difficult logistically to steal information when everything was on hard copy. But we're in a MoneyWise article here, and I think this is really interesting, actually. And it's about, again, technology, but AI more specifically. How is that my fault? Home warranty company refuses to pay Utah man $3,000. He says he was promised by what is now miscommunication through an AI chatbot to replace his faulty air conditioning unit. And boy, he looks confused. Look at this guy. That is confusion and outrage. I love the photos. Like many homeowners, Robert Brown purchased a home warranty to protect his finances against problems that might occur on his property. Naturally, when his air conditioner broke, he contacted his warranty company to get it repaired. A technician was dispatched and able to get the unit up and running again, but told Brown it was only a temporary fix. The Draper, Utah homeowner realized he would need to get a replacement. He contacted the warranty company again and pleaded his case. Brown went online and was connected to the warranty company's chat bot, where he explained what had occurred. Now, this is a quote. From that chat. Homeowner, can I just get the maximum payout of $3,000? I will order and get it installed myself. Chatbot agreed. Quote from Chatbot, we will proceed with the payout option of $3,000 as per your request. Brown says he was assured several times that the money was on the way, but when he called the company after the payment didn't come, he says the business told him the chatbot was, quote, miscommunicating with customers and that they would not pay him. And the homeowner, Mr. Brown, says, how is that my fault? Good question. Brown then contacted KSL News, which called the Utah Division of Consumer Protection. Here's what happens next, along with details. In response to Brown's predicament, the Utah Division of Consumer Protection made it clear that a company can't simply ignore agreements made by their AI software. quote, a company is ultimately responsible for the things their representatives are saying. A robot can be a representative of a company. This type of scenario has played out before elsewhere. In February, Air Canada was ordered to compensate a grieving passenger who claimed in 2022 its chatbot misled them into purchasing tickets at full price up front instead of at the bereavement rate. Upon returning from their grandmother's funeral, the passenger was denied a refund. They say the bot told them was available. Canadian airline argued tribunal member Christopher C. Rivers, the online tool was a separate legal entity that is responsible for its own actions, and pointed out it had an accurate version of its bereavement travel policy on the website, which doesn't allow for refunds after travel is complete. Still, the tribunal wasn't moved, and the airline was said to be held responsible for all information on its site, even if the robot had provided it. And hearing more and more stories like this about people who they're promised something by one of these AI bots, and they may or may not even realize that they're talking to AI software and not an actual representative, being given options or promised things, being given refunds, being given special rates, special prices, being given specific information, and then later on finding out it's not true. New York is going through this and has been going through it for almost a year now. We read the story nearly a year ago, I believe, that I think it's the Traffic Commission is using AI instead of operators, and it's been misquoting regulations that are actually causing people to violate the law, but New York says it's not responsible for that. And Jack is here, says Happy New Year, as well as League of Smoke. I'm on early today. John says, and this is why I never ever talk through messaging on their AI chat. I always physically call their customer service line and talk with a live person, even when it's an overseas person. Don't trust the chats. Yeah. So none of these companies want to take responsibility for it, but even if it is just software, it's still representing you. And Peter says, no such thing as AI. Algorithms are not AI. No, they're not. They're not intelligence. And they don't even work right. And I've made this argument before that on your cell phone, when you are using, if it's active on your phone and you're doing text messaging, you notice how sometimes, not just on text on your phone, but in a lot of areas, you try to type something and it tries to predict what you're going to say, and it gives you words, but often those words don't match or don't make sense. And you're like, no, that's not what I'm trying to type, or it throws a word in for you, and you go back and you look at it and you're like, no, that's not what I said. And you have to erase it and put what you meant back in there if you caught it. That technology's been around for like 20 years. It still doesn't work. That shit still doesn't work. And they're trying to push all this on us. They've got bots answering consumer questions and representing companies. We're supposed to trust that? So this bot offered this guy a $3,000 break on his new AC unit. And then the company's like, nah, that's not our policy. Although, in theory, they can and very likely will be held accountable because that system does represent that company, whether they like it or not. And if they don't like it, they need to put a real person back on that line. This is another example of a technology that is not ready being rolled out and forced on us, just like solar energy, just like wind power, just like electric cars, and all that other stuff that I'm always going on about. That stuff doesn't work right. It's not ready. If you could put solar out there because and I've demonstrated this on this channel. I did a whole separate video on it. Solar provides like something around less than 1% of our grid, with about 1,000 solar power stations in the United States. Meanwhile, 61, I think it's 61 nuclear power stations are providing 20% of our grid. That just doesn't add up. That doesn't make sense. The solar power, it's not there yet. Stop forcing it on us. Electric vehicles, it's not there yet. Stop forcing it on us. It doesn't work right. This AI chatbot bullshit doesn't work right either. New York Patriot has joined us. Glad you could make it. Johnny says, on the same token, these companies need to step up and take responsibility for their chats, because it is speaking on the company's behalf, just like a live person, but that's their loophole. And they all do that. They all sit there and say, oh, well, no, it doesn't represent us. It's its own entity. If it's its own entity, you're implying it has its own independent intelligence, which means that, yes, it does speak for you. Make up your mind. They only want that when it's convenient. They only want that when it's convenient. They want they want to be able to not have to pay someone. It's going to cost them a lot more in the long run as they continue to make all sorts of mistakes. And speaking of mistakes, I give you America pulling out of Afghanistan. At least the way they did it was badly done. Newsweek article. It just keeps getting better, folks. Taliban bans windows to stop women being seen inside of their homes. Thank God. The Taliban has banned windows so that look onto areas where Afghan women could be seen inside their homes. Quote, seeing women working in kitchens, in courtyards, or collecting water from wells can lead to obscene acts, according to government spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid, posted on X on Saturday. Because Lord knows, seeing women like this in this photo, you see the picture? For those of you who can see this, because I know some people are just listening, and these two women are in full-on burqas, even with the screen over their face and everything, man, it's just driving me wild. I'm just itchy all over looking at that. Oh boy. I'm telling you what. New York Patriot says, from a mechanic's standpoint with regards to electric vehicles, but older vehicles that are older vehicles that are reliable and you can fix yourself. Yeah. All the electric stuff is too proprietary. And that's why there's so many, we've talked about it many times, all over the country, there's school buses that are mothballed and city buses that are mothballed because the companies that were manufacturing the parts or that were manufacturing the vehicles themselves went into a bankruptcy, and all of their pieces are proprietary and you can't replace them. Can't even get simple things like I remember one of the articles we read, and I want to say it was an Alabama school district. They had a bunch of school buses that were sitting in storage, and one of them, it was simply because they can't get the doors closed. The gears are proprietary to that particular bus from that particular EV company. They can't even jury rig it. Peter says the mistake was going into Afghanistan to start with. I agree. Never should have been involved. Johnny says, as if they don't treat their women horribly anyway, it gets worse. Yep. And Jack says, gotta wonder the mindset of people that view women like that. Well, and and people are in the United States crying and complaining about women's rights. Go to Afghanistan and try that. I dare you. It says the Taliban have taken multiple steps to walk back women's rights since taking over the country in 2021, including banning education for girls beyond grade 6, banning women from universities, and banning women's voices and bare faces in public. Hey, Granny. That's Granny Smith making all that noise back there. Don't scratch that box. A decree by the Taliban's supreme leader, Hibatullah Akhundzada, states that new buildings should not have windows that show the courtyard, kitchen, neighbor's well, and other places usually used by women, according to translations. Existing windows looking into such areas should be blocked with a wall or should have their views obstructed in some other way to avoid nuisances caused to neighbors. Earlier this month, the United Nations urged the Taliban to respect the rights of women in Afghanistan, warning that the future of the nation depends on safeguarding the rights of all of its citizens. Please, Taliban, please respect their rights. We're the UN. Oh my God. New York Patriot says none of the electric buses that the MTA has purchased are on the roads. Ask me how I know. Yeah, I bet. It's they're mothballed along with those electric snow plows that New York bought that don't work. They can't push the snow because they don't have the engine power, and that once they stop moving are stuck there because the batteries die in the cold. Brian says, did the kids at least get to go home? What kids? And New York Patriot says the light blue burqa has got me hot and bothered. I know, man, that's hot. And Jack says people don't realize how controlling some parts of Sharia law are, yet some think it is what is best for the UK and Europe. Yeah, they think it's great until they have to deal with it. League says, excuse me, if you're going to do that accent, at least play Arabian Nights in the background. Yeah, I know. There you go. And Johnny says they don't want women looking out and people looking in. Sounds like North Korea. I know, mind your business. It's a nuisance to the neighbors. Oh, no. It's a nuisance to your neighbors. What, you don't like my Taliban voice? Head of the UN's mission in Afghanistan, Rosa Oltenbuyeva, said, there is an ongoing dangerous erosion of human rights protections, with women and girls bearing the brunt. Oh, yeah. I'll tell you what. You put blue hats on the ground in Afghanistan, and please don't ask President Trump to pay for it, because I don't think he will. Not this time around. O'Brien says on the failed electric school bus. I see what you're saying. Well, they would just get a diesel bus to drive to wherever the electric school bus fell apart and transfer them. But yeah, now windows are banned. They've got to board up windows because, man, that's some hot mamas right there. I'll tell you what. And they wonder, oh, man, and they wonder why they have so much trouble with their sheep herders. Oh, my God. I mean, I'm all for women demonstrating modesty. Okay? I hate walking around and seeing women very, very inappropriately dressed. Okay? Walking around in tight yoga clothes with their belly hanging out, and they don't even have the bodies for it. All right? And it's not even that they don't have the shape to pull off tight yoga clothes. It's the fact that there's no modesty. But this is too much. That's too much. That's too much. Johnny says, with your Taliban voice, at least you have a beard. Yes. Jack says, next door will be banned because it lets women outside in public. It lets women out in public. Look at these women. They are driving me wild, and I want board up my window as not to be offended, so that I will not act inappropriately. Behave yourself, Ahmed. Anyways, with that, we are at the top of the hour. So I will go ahead and start signing off. Excuse me. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find the live portion most of the time, unless I do it early like today. You could find us at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Coffee Talk and on Prepper University on YouTube. You can find me on Rumble, although I cannot see the comments from Rumble apparently. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta, and you can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. League says they were deployed in Afghanistan. We did more harm than good. They didn't want our BS over there. My wife was deployed in Afghanistan, active duty. Remember, she was an emergency field medic, and all she did was treat the enemy and clean up suicides. She's got really bad memories of Afghanistan. But with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Again, thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. As always, hope you got something out of the conversation. And we will catch you again tomorrow at the regular time.